Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're doing well, Miss Muslima Coach. I will call you with this name as you are known for this name on social media. And I will call you as I see you, Miss Zahra. And I talked before 2, 3 days with someone from Canada, and she told me, Sava, you're the only one who talk with me in a formal way. And I'm always calling people like women, Muslims, always with Miss or Mister. And I don't know, maybe it's like a European German way to call people, always with Miss or Mister. But yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakallah khairan for having me here, Saba. So yes, I am the Muslimah coach. My name is Zahra, and I work with Muslim women to help develop their emotional intelligence and help them gain emotional regulation so that they can let go of difficult emotions, uncomfortable emotions like anger and resentment, and invite calm, clarity, peace into their lives and strengthen their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, great. So I reached to you as emotional intelligence is actually the key to any success,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not it's underrated. Although emotional intelligence is spoken now on social media and in the society more, but it is still underrated. I see it with myself, and I have the feeling I can't touch the emotional intelligence. The word touch is strange to use, but I will emphasize this later. I will jump into the first question with you, Miss Zahra.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what I would like to ask you is what I said, the topic emotional intelligence is
Yeah.
heard by so many people, has reached many people nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
and people are very materialistic and they always want to um, um, see um, everything based on science and
Yeah.
believe most of the things based on science.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the emotional intelligence feels unreal.
Yeah.
And how can I truly live with it? How can I say, okay, I feel it, this is there. It's
Mhm.
true, emotional intelligence does exist.
It does exist, absolutely. And um, there's a few things because emotional intelligence is just like any part of our intelligence is quite nuanced. And when we hear emotional intelligence, often it can be quite a new term or a fresh perspective on things. And so we don't have too much understanding behind it. And we often think of it as being something that's fluffy or a nice to have. Yet with any intelligence, it's within us. We have the ability to regulate and manage our emotions. And when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we're talking about recognizing, understanding, managing, and using our emotions effectively. Now, even when we look in the world around us today, many of the TED talkers, many of the successful entrepreneurs will talk about having a control over your emotions. And they will say that, success lies within that because not only when you manage your own emotions are you able to change your behavior into something more positive, but you're also able to have a degree of influence in other people's lives too. And
Mm.
when you're developing a business, we talk about materialism. What is materialism? It's evoking emotions within you, right? Consumerism is based on making you want things, making you feel like when you have something that you can purchase or buy, that will bring a fulfillment or a sense of joy within your life. So it is all centered around emotions, really. Now, when we're young children, we're sent off to nursery or school, and the skills and abilities academically are developed. Emotionally, not so much. Now, in today's day and age, children are seeing that their emotional intelligence is also being developed because there's a real importance around it. Now, we come onto the science of it. So even in Western psychology, we have the emotional mind, we have the rational mind, we have the wise mind. When we come to Islamic psychology, we have the nafs, the akal, and the qalb. So they all interconnect and are of the same. So understanding it from a scientific point of view helps us understand its importance to invite more and more emotional intelligence within our lives, and understanding how our actions and behaviors can change as a result of that. I'm a firm believer of holistic health. So I believe that our physical, emotional, mental and spiritual health is all interconnected. And as Muslims, if we want to refine and we want to strengthen that connection we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, managing and controlling our emotions is a part of that. Managing and controlling our nafs, developing that akal within us, developing that qalb that helps us connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all a part of that journey. And so when we look towards science, we look towards materialism, and we will happily sign up to the gym or get new workout clothes and try and, you know, work on our mental health. Emotional health has to be up there, because if you work on everything around it, but you don't work on your emotional health, you'll still be holding yourself back. Now, coming on to your question about living it actively within this day and age, well, self-awareness is key, and practicing self-reflection, taking that time to reflect on your emotions, your triggers, your reactions, can really help you understand who you are and the things that impact you. Naturally, as a person within relationships with other people and as a human being, you will also be having an impact on somebody else. So the more you're able to practice reflecting on your own experiences and your own feelings, the more you can have an impact that's positive on other people around you too. Then we come into self-regulation. So, you know, the world we live in today is highly stressful. We're often spinning a lot of plates. We're often managing a lot of things. The mental load is very, very high. Practicing stress management, practicing the ability to be able to let go of stress and allowing your body just to be present, be conscious, and understanding the feelings that are coming within, understanding what emotions and information they're bringing in is another way of cultivating and bringing emotional intelligence within our lives. If we look to the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kindness, compassion, empathy was at the foremost of his character. And we are told that, you know, kindness will weigh the heaviest on our scales on the day of judgment. So it's something that we should be actively cultivating. Yeah, we are coming into a era where we believe we have to protect ourselves and have strong boundaries, and we'll practice kindness easily to strangers, but not so easily to people we know really well or the relationships that we're in. So actively listening to people, you know, giving them a chance to convey what they believe, their core values, how they're feeling, creating that safe space that allows you to talk about your emotions without judgment, you know, shifting your perspective to understanding how other people see things, and then allowing yourself to communicate really effectively how you're seeing something whilst remaining calm and controlling your emotions. It helps you to develop empathy towards others. And when you develop empathy, kindness and compassion is at the forefront of that. And it really connects you on a spiritual level, because you're doing it with the intention of following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also attaining the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and treating people with kindness, and understanding that, you know, there are relationships within our lives that are sent as a test, but there are also relationships in our lives that are sent as a nurturing and supporting environment too. And when we take that mindset, we take that perspective, it becomes much more easier to control our own emotions. Then we come on to the other relationships we have within our lives. So friendships and our relationships with professional colleagues and the wider relationships with the community. Every time you invite emotional intelligence into your life, you think from the perspective of how you're feeling and of how you're leaving others feeling. You're actively practicing emotional regulation day to day. So self-awareness is really key for that. Even I would go on to say, when we talk about materialism, you know, we all have that nature within us where we're impulsive buyers, you know, and that's largely why the industry exists. If we weren't impulsive buyers and we thought rationally about everything, we perhaps wouldn't spend as much money on consuming and buying products and services. But it's important to maintain that self-awareness and self-reflection. If you're purchasing a good or service and you're doing it for that, you know, dopamine hit, you're doing it for that serotonin, what is that actually bringing to you? Are you at the moment feeling down about something else and you're trying to fill a void? Or is it just that you naturally liked something and you're going to buy it because it's something that you would like to have? Understanding why you do things, the feelings behind why you do things, can really help you to become empathetic, to become better at emotional intelligence and ultimately emotional regulation.
I have so many questions. And I can't.
I thought that.
And I think that we don't have the time for it. I will ask you the second question. What
Mhm.
type of relationships does every human being need?
Now, this is a really interesting one because it can be quite vulnerable to say you need something within your life. We
Mm,
tend to like to be independent and believe that we are self-sustaining, and that is not the nature of the ummah. That is not the nature of a community. We were sent to this dunya to live amongst others, and we were sent in this dunya to maintain ties with others. And so it's really important to try and understand the relationships that you have within your life and what those relationships are bringing. I did a really amazing podcast on this for my PER community because I wanted to share with them that relationships also within their nature are quite holistic. You will have some relationships where you're giving a little bit more, and other relationships where you take a little bit more. We as humans tend to have that perspective that just one relationship, we should have an equal 50-50 balance of give and take. That's quite a negative way to approach relationships, because naturally some relationships will require you to impart wisdom, and some relationships you will be learning the wisdom from. So when you think of your relationships, it's always a good way to think of them holistically and think of all the relationships you have within your life and how much you're giving and taking generally overall within them, because you should want to support, but you should also feel supported. Now, many of us will have our family relationships, which are a key essence to having and building trust and emotional intelligence, because these are often the most earliest and enduring relationships we have. These are the ones that provide the emotional support, love, and a sense of belonging from day one. We then extend those to the relationships we have with our grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, who provide additional layers of support and connection. So these are relationships that nurture us from the beginning, very beginning of our life. And hopefully, inshallah, we continue till the end of our lives, because they're the key maintaining of ties of kinship that, Islamically we should be doing. We then have friendships, so we can have close friends that we confide in, rely on. We have that safe emotional space to vent and share our thoughts and feelings with, and they provide a sense of companionship. We have other relationships that might not be deep, close friendships, but they allow us to socialize, and they can still allow us to have a sense of community. Romantic relationships, so your relationship with your spouse that offers you the intimacy, love, and companionship you need throughout life, is a great relationship to have because it also allows for that personal growth. And I think if you speak to anybody who is married, you'll find that they were a very different person when that marriage started, and they've become a very different person as that marriage has developed, because you learn so much about yourself when you're kind of marrying into a relationship, living with somebody else that you haven't been raised with, but you're learning and building that human connection with.
So the relationships that we need, so we need relationships, yes, but we have the choice. So to choose the relationships we need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you said the first thing is having relationship with our family.
Yeah.
So everything starts within the family and then goes
Yeah.
outside to the
Because
reality of our lives outside home.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, your family is a relationship you've been given. So you're born with your parents, they're your primary caregivers.
Oh my
And
God. Within the podcast, I got sorry.
so your parents are your primary caregivers, they've been chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself for you. Now, like it or not, you're as a child quite vulnerable and susceptible to the emotional connection that they provide and the emotional blueprint that they give you. When you're around 6-7 years old and you start developing your ego and you start developing your sense of belonging, they're the first people you look to for an emotional blueprint, and you learn and you take things from their care. So that relationship is something that you might not have a choice on, but definitely as you grow, as you learn, as you develop, as you experience life and experience situations, you can definitely see where you can benefit from their wisdom and where you can grow a connection with them and share your thoughts and feelings about the changing world and the changing nature, to try and give them also an updated version of their emotional blueprint too.
I totally agree with this. Building a healthy relationship within the family. Not everyone has a healthy relationship. Um, I just had a podcast yesterday with Samaya Atuji from
Oh yeah,
the Heal Sister. And what she said is building at first a relationship with God and then with our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this, um, upon these relationships, everything can be built.
yeah.
And because not everyone has a healthy relationship with a family, and yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's understanding when you have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you have a relationship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you learn the degree of relationship you need to maintain with the ummah and other people within the ummah. And if you do have difficult relationships, it's when you become emotionally intelligent, you can gain an understanding of what that relationship does to your feelings and how it affects you. You can then start protecting your heart and protecting your peace. So, for example, if you have a difficult relationship with your parents and you know that perhaps it's not a good idea to challenge their beliefs or their core values or try and gain an understanding on something that you feel differently about, then it's not worth pursuing. It's more important for you to protect your peace and to protect your heart. And so you build those boundaries that keep those relationships healthy, allow you to maintain those relationships, but also make sure that you're not entering conflict into those relationships and you're not hurting your parents and you're not hurting yourself, thus trying to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your intentions.
Um, I have a lot of questions. I still have, and
Feel free to ask away.
yeah, I'm not exaggerating about this. But I'm asking, I will continue with the third question. How can a child not having the validation of a female of a male figure, not female, of a male figure, find validation in Allah?
So I think although we're specifically talking about a male role model, I think the ways that you can find validation from Allah can be taught to any child because they have a clear blueprint for you to shape and nurture and create for them. And as you do that, I think every child can benefit from the validation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is often seen as the ultimate source of guidance, support, and validation, it's important that children develop a strong connection to him from an early age. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to teach faith and belief. Often we rely on children being old enough to perhaps enter a madrasa or the mosque and learn from the imam or the ulama or the scholars. And we should be the first person to introduce our child to the Islamic faith from an early age and try and teach them about the core beliefs and who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and the importance of faith and trust within him. And as a parent, I find that children they're very receptive to hearing more about it because they can see an Islamic home that has an Islamic tradition and Islamic values, and they want to know more about why you do things. And the more you communicate with them about who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, who his traits are, how he thinks of you, and the very fact that he felt that this tiny dot in the universe needed you to be in it and he created you, can show a real sense of validation for a child and a real sense of importance to them. The other way to do this when you don't have a male figure present is to make sure that you teach them about prayer and worship. And this is not just about encouraging them in the regular prayers and the salah, but also other acts of worship and a direct connection and a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and teaching them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it when we ask him for even the simplest of things. And if they need a pencil to do their homework or they need a book to write in, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that, and he will provide. And often he provides through the parents or the mother, and children have the ability to gain those things. And they don't think about if you go to a shop and you buy a pencil or a book, where that book or pencil has come from. But ultimately, if you then connect that back to say actually it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's providing you with these things, you can really help to build and deepen their connection so that their reliance becomes on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they know that when they are feeling down or they are feeling hurt or they are in any kind of pain or they need reassurance, that's the person, well, that's the being to turn to, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is always there, even if people within their lives come and go. Reading and reflecting on the Quran gives them valuable guidance, because even short stories can help to reaffirm their faith, their belief and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ultimately, I think the most important and the most necessary way is to be a role model for them and set a positive example in being a caregiver and developing your own connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because when they can see the power of validation that comes from having your faith and having your belief, then they will also want the same for themselves. And children are very perceptive, they're very observing, and when they can see that you do things for the purpose of your own happiness and your own positivity, they will also share within that.
Is there a name of Allah which emphasizes the validation of someone's work?
Sorry?
Is there a name of Allah which emphasizes the validation of the work we do, of the actions we do?
I think that this is something that everybody will connect with differently, and there will be a name that speaks differently to them depending on, you know, what they're going through. Definitely, like when I speak to women and they're going through a hard time, they have the core belief that, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, and he will make sure that the scales are balanced on the day of judgment, and what they can't do in this dunya will be given to them in akhirah. And then, you know, you speak to some women who are very lonely, and for them, you know, the friendship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really prevalent in their life, and that's something that they hold on to dearly. For me, definitely, I think Ar-Rahman and As-Salam, I mean, those two names, they give me a huge amount of comfort, because knowing that he's so merciful, when the dunya sometimes can't be merciful to you and doesn't show you mercy, you know, it can really help you gain that sense of belonging and confidence and the validation that you do matter and you are important and you've been created for a reason, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got you because he has you in his mercy. And that allows you also to be merciful to other people, because you know that you are a servant of the merciful, and if he is merciful to you, then he would definitely expect you to be merciful to his creation and his being. And so I love that, you know, that one name can have so many different nuances that connect you back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also connect you to other human beings as well. And, you know, if you start off on a merciful foot in any relationship, you're going to be able to develop a strong human connection. You're going to be able to develop a bond with another person, and you're going to be able to carry through that relationship with mercy and forgiveness, the same mercy and forgiveness we seek of him. And I think with As-Salam is just, you know, sometimes we say salam to each other and we don't realize the importance of that salam and the fact that we're wishing peace on one another. And as you grow, as you develop, as you develop emotional maturity and life gives you challenges and situations to face, connecting with that source of peace and knowing that everything about the faith that you have and the belief that you have is centered around peace can be hugely, hugely comforting in those periods of distress.
I told you I will ask you 3 questions only. I will
Feel
ask you
free if you
really
have another
small.
question that you'd
I
like
will
to
ask
ask.
a really short question and then we can leave. This is what I ask myself very often is non-Muslims do know about emotional intelligence. Is there something called Islamic emotional intelligence?
I think there is, and I think that we are very lucky that if we think of something in a linear form and we think of, you know, non-Muslims are connecting from A to B, we are very, very lucky to be able to connect from A to B to C, because we are able to elevate our own emotional intelligence, and we are able to connect that back to how we want to be as Muslims and as Muslimas, and the character that's been defined for us through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he treated strangers, how he treated non-Muslims, how he treated Muslims, how he treated family and friends. You know, we've been given that example, and Non-Muslims, they're at a disadvantage because they're learning this all from a secular perspective. They're learning this all from developing, their wise mind, but they don't have that reason why. They are developing it because they've either come across it, they've heard about it, they've seen somebody else benefit from it, or they're at that level within their own growth journey and belief where they can elevate their thinking and really invest in themselves to do this. For us, we are very lucky that the Quran and Sunnah lays out emotional intelligence for us to learn from. In the stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam, they suffered greatly. They went through a whole range of emotions and they dealt with these emotions through dua, through supplications, and through helping one another in the community and the society. We think about how the Quran was revealed, and we think about how the Madinat surahs were revealed to build a community and a sense of belonging. And we have all of these within these Islamic principles embedded within our faith and firm belief. And I think that's why we are able to tap into emotional intelligence. Once you start learning, once you start becoming aware of it, once you start inviting it into your life, you see how much you spiritually develop as well.
Okay, I think we're done with the podcast. It's very cold, and okay, we're done. But I don't want to be at the end, but I have to. If you have any book, Miss Sahra, to recommend about emotional intelligence, I would like to introduce it to these on my page,
Mm-hmm.
and because I need it foremost, and then um yeah. Do you like to say something else before we end?
I would just like to say Jazakallah khairan for having me and giving me this opportunity to share a little bit more about emotional intelligence and Islam and how Muslims ourselves can benefit from this. I would also just like to add that I know for a lot of people it can seem very overwhelming to start their emotional intelligence journey and developing emotional regulation, and it doesn't have to be that way. The PER community is all centered around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those steps, where there's small, consistent steps that we take. And if every day we are able to give ourselves the ability just to tune in and understand how we're feeling and how those feelings change throughout the day, then we are already inviting more self-awareness into our life. And in turn, when we then pray as-salam, when we then make dua, we make supplications to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will be using those feelings for good, and we will have better intentions in how we perform our ibadah and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Inshallah. If you have any book or something I can recommend on social media, please send it to me. I'm sure, and I'm real for it. I would like to benefit and to benefit others. Um, Thank you so much, Miss Zahra.
That's okay. Jazakallah khairan for having me.
Thank you so much. So, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.